Order the Monte Sereno Site and Architecture Commission meeting for March 3rd, 2021. Ms. Hamilton, you have some things I know you have to say in advance of these Zoom meetings.
Yes. So these are some of the meeting rules. So for commissioner, staff, and meeting participants, I want to thank you for joining us this evening for the March 3rd, 2021 Monte Sereno Site and Architectural Commission meeting. Some of the house rules. Before the meeting is called to order, I'd like to point out a few things to assist the commission members, staff, and members of the public to successfully participate in this meeting. Commissioners, please keep your microphones muted until you wish to speak. You have a hot mic. For this commission meeting, we're using Zoom to host the meeting. At the bottom of the Zoom client, there are two icons, chat and raise hand. Please use chat only to report technical issues, such as being unable to hear commissioner speaking. Please use the raise hand if you would like to be recognized and enabled to speak to the commission by the chairperson. Comments in the chat feature will not be part of the public record. For the public to comment under oral communications or on any agenda item, either use the raise hand, or emails can be submitted to myself, the city planner, limited to 350 words, and they will be read into the record. This limit is set to adhere to the typical 3-minute allowance. Only attendees using the Zoom application can use the raise hand option to comment. Participation from a telephone will allow for listening only and does not allow for any feedback. And finally, because we're not all in the same room, all votes at this meeting will be taken by roll call.
All right, thank you. And don't record this without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. All right, so can we do roll call, please?
Okay, Commissioner Harrington.
Here.
Commissioner Booker.
Present.
Commissioner Sharma.
Here.
Commissioner Zeidler.
Here.
Chairperson White.
Here.
Just to note, all commissioners are present.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. And are there any orders of the day not reflected on our agenda?
I would request to reverse the order of 1 and 2 and hear the Bancroft Avenue project first. So I think that might be a little quicker so that we can then get to the next item, if that's okay with you.
I think that's fine with me, but my agenda reflects Bancroft as 1 and
does it? See, on the one online says Blanchard first. Okay. Okay. So that's why I think we will be hearing the Bancroft item and then the Blanchard.
Any other have an objection to that? No. Okay, that's not perfect, I think. Okay, but before we get to that, we have a little housekeeping to do, principally approval of meeting minutes from the meetings of both December 2, 2020 and January 13, 2021. I hope everybody's had an opportunity to review these. I don't know that our newer commissioners were familiar at all with the meeting in December, but I'm willing to entertain motions to approve these minutes if anybody wants to make one.
I don't know if it's, is it important to say, I did go back and watch the December meeting. So if that's relevant in terms of approving the minutes, that should be part of the record.
Absolutely. That's exactly what you can do. And so it's appropriate for you to vote on this because you have heard that meeting. And Heather, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
I was going to say I motion to approve the minutes as written for December and January.
All right, I'll second that. If you could take a call out vote, please, Ms. Hamilton.
Okay, Commissioner Zeidler.
Aye.
Commissioner Sharma.
Aye.
Commissioner Booker.
Aye.
Commissioner Harrington.
Aye.
Chairperson White.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes 5-0.
Okay, so let's move into our very first agenda item. Ms. Hamilton will give the commissioners an introduction of this project, and then the way that the process occurs is we bring the applicant forward or anybody that wants to speak on behalf of the applicant, and are afforded an opportunity to speak before the commission, and then we'll entertain any public comments regarding the project as well. And then we'll close the public comment period. The commissioners will then discuss it amongst ourselves, and hopefully a motion is made to approve, so we can move past onto the next agenda item and go through the same process. With that said, Ms. Hamilton, can you introduce this first agenda item for us, please?
Thank you. This is a site development permit for 18172 Bancroft Avenue. And the proposal involves an addition of approximately 1,370 square feet to an existing 3,112 square foot single-story home for a total of 4,482 square feet. The full project involves a remodel, but the additions are both to the rear of the existing home and to the front. And if you notice, the existing home sits pretty far back on the property. It's an extremely long, slender parcel. So even with the addition of a garage to the front of it, there's still a significant setback of anywhere from 30 to 50 feet of that new addition. As you can see from the renderings, it's very tasteful, in line with the low profile homes, the existing home. And I think I was able to forward to you comments from a neighbor fully supportive of the proposed additions. With that, I do know that the architect and property owner are available to speak and then answer any questions, as am I.
Great, thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Before we hear from the applicant and any representative of him or her, anybody have any questions for Ms. Hamilton? All right, seeing none then, does the applicant want to speak to this, or the representative? We're happy to hear from you at this opportunity. Okay, I see Mr. Nielsen and a phone number.
Yeah, hi, good evening. This is Dave Nielsen, the owner of the property. Just want to thank you for your review of our proposal. I think Jeannie did a great job introducing the project to the committee. And we have Nick Noyes, our architect, on the call tonight to answer any questions you may have about what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Noyes, did you have anything you wanted to say, or just entertain questions?
I just want to, it's my first Zoom planning meeting, so I'm sorry to meet in person. I want to thank Jeannie. She's been super helpful. It's a lovely site. As Jeannie was saying, it's a very long linear site. So even with the addition of the garage at the front, it is pulled quite back far from the street. We kept the single story nature of the existing ranch house, which is quite a nice ranch house. So we're maintaining virtually all of it, renovating it extensively, adding a family room at the back, garage to the front. The materials we're using are hardy siding, composition shingled roof, Marvin windows. So a pretty low key approach. It'll be enlivened with some cedar details, but it's a pretty low key project. It's a family with 4 kids, so we're really just trying to create a wonderful family home on this pretty spectacular site in your beautiful city down there. So available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Noyes. Commissioners, anybody have any questions for Mr. Noyes? No. Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Noyes. Thank you, Mr. Nielsen. We'll now afford the public an opportunity to speak on this project, and we've already been provided at least one letter that is part of the applicant's file. Is there anybody here from the public that wants to speak on this particular project? Ms. Hamilton, is anybody looking to speak to this? I don't see anybody from my end, but. We don't see any raised hands now. Okay, great. All right, then we will close the public comment portion and turn it back to us as a commission to discuss. I think this is a great looking project. I'm especially appreciative of the applicant's efforts to preserve the oak trees that are on the lot and configure the home in such a way that it minimizes any impact to those. I think it's an attractive improvement to this street, and I'm willing to hear anything else if anybody disagrees with me.
I 100% agree. I love the color scheme and the appropriateness to the lot and the fact that there are no trees, like you said, removed. So I think I have no problem with the project.
Yeah,
Anybody else?
no,
All right. Well, I think everybody has seen the draft memorandum of decision for the site development permit. I think this certainly satisfies all of the conditions that we need to, or the findings that we need to make under Municipal Code Section 10.08.050, open parents, large B, closed parents. I would make a motion to approve the project as submitted. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Great. And Ms. Hamilton, if you could do a roll call vote, we can move on to our next project soon.
Okay, Commissioner Harrington,
Aye.
Commissioner Sharma,
Aye.
Commissioner Booker,
aye,
Commissioner Zeidler,
Aye.
Chairperson White.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes 5-0.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Thank you, commissioners. And good luck to the Nielsens. Thank you. All right. The next item on our agenda is 18520 Blanchard Drive. If you could introduce that particular topic for us, or application, please, Ms. Hamilton.
Yeah, and again, my apologies. It's 17520. So
Sorry,
it was a rough month, I guess.
just reading from here, but yeah, no, we've all seen it. I hope everybody went to the right address.
Yeah, and at any rate, what is proposed here is a site development permit for the approval of a fence or wall. It's fence in excess of the allowed 3 feet within the front setback. And if you want to exceed that 3 feet, you do have to come before Site and Architectural Commission for public hearing, and you all need to make the same findings. We have received significant feedback from the neighborhood, rightfully so. I think I'd forward all of it. I received 10 emails or letters, so I forward all of them to you as well as to the applicant. And you know, I've heard the comments as proposed. The applicant was going to have the lower portion of the wall stucco with the upper portion horizontal slats with a aluminum with 3 inch separations. And later in the day, and I don't know if many people in the public were able to go on, but we attached a picture, and I did forward that picture of an example of what's being proposed. Some of the comments raised concerns relative to the potential walling off of the home from the street, and that's not something that's currently on Blanchard, and there's a real concern that it would disrupt the open and more rural character of that street. Others also raised a concern of traffic visibility around the corner, and I know the proposal does jog the fence back. I'm not quite sure if this was to be supported, we would need to make sure that proposed fencing does not fall within what's referred to as the visibility triangle, which is 40 feet down each street from the point of intersection of the property lines. Not quite sure as proposed it meets that, but like I said, regardless, if it was to be supportive, we would condition that any modifications be made to that. The applicant has, I think, tried to present something that was not truly wall-like. So they have that upper portion of it open in nature. It steps back along the property line, so it doesn't create that solid wall. But again, I think, you know, from an overall standpoint, it would be introducing something that currently is not present on Blanchard. And I think the area that might be most impactful from the heavily traveled Winchester Boulevard, you know, is that side corner where there is already an existing, you know, 6+ tall wall, which is in place now and protecting that property from any noise impacts and anybody traveling along that Winchester side of the property. So, you know, although initially there have been times where these corner properties that are on heavily traveled streets have had the benefit of a higher fence or wall within their front setback. Those are really along more heavily traveled intersecting streets, both of those streets being heavily traveled. I think Blanchard Drive is the difference here in that it is not as heavily traveled as some of the others where that situation has been allowed. So with that, I'm available for any questions. I did forward out to the commission a revised draft memorandum of decision, which I also did share with the applicant.
Great, thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Do any of the commissioners have questions for Ms. Hamilton before we speak with the applicant? All right, seeing none, I welcome the applicant and anybody that wants to speak on the applicant's behalf.
Fini.
Mr.
Do you hear me, Mr. White?
I can. Thank you, Mr. Fini.
Thank you. I'm Jeff Fini, and my wife is here with me, Heather Fini, and wanted to thank you as the commissioners that to allow us to actually speak up on this and talk about it. But before going forward, I just wanted to let all the neighbors know that we both review all the comments line by line, and just to let them know that we have the most respect for the neighbors, and there is nothing in the world we will do if they're not happy. Even if one person is not happy, we would not touch it and do it, because that's not the reason we are moving there. The reason we are moving there because we live in Saratoga for over 30 years, but our dream was always to move to Monte Sereno, and this was the opportunity to move to a beautiful place and live there and have a great neighbors for the rest of our life. With that, the last thing we wanted to do, to have anybody being upset or not accepting what we wanted to do. The only thing is the drawings were a little misleading, and that's why I sent that picture. The only things I was going to share for the sake of the neighbors. Again, even if one person doesn't like it or doesn't approve it, we would not do it. And we are planning to do landscaping and make it beautiful anyway. But the only things I can share that is a little different than what the drawing was misleading, and there was no picture showing it, that our plan was, and the only reason for doing that was because I travel a lot, and my wife is by herself all the time. And being right in that corner and all the news that I've heard recently about what has happened with the robbery and people trying to break into the house and all of that. And then also we have the house set with the porch, and it's completely open. You can just walk into the yard and go to the backyard and go to where the swimming pool and all of that. So with all of that, what I was hoping to do, my architect didn't do a good job, to really bring in that having a 3 feet compliance with the city like everybody else has it, across the street from us has it, to have it 3 feet. Then I was hoping to put it 3 feet or less than 3 feet, maybe 2.5 feet of a kind of fence, rod fence, see-through, to put it there, to be able to put a gate so in kind of trying to minimize if anybody is just walking into the property. And then it will be at least 20 feet away from the property line. So we will move it back as far as possible to do it. But all of that, and then the rest of it will be all landscaping, beautiful landscaping to make it clear and clean. But at the same time, again, even if that's not good enough, then I'm sorry for what we did. And obviously we haven't done it yet, but we will do whatever the neighbors like to do and the commissioners direct us to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feeney. I have a question for both you and Ms. Hamilton. The photo that was shared with us today, which I thought Commissioner Ziedler requested, and I'm appreciative of her request in that respect, because I think it's very helpful. It's much better than that which was reflected on the plans we received. Has Mr. Feeney seen that image, Ms. Hamilton?
Mr. Feeney submitted it to me.
Okay, so what we received today, Mr. Feeney, is an accurate representation of what you're actually intending to construct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Of course.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Feeney?
Yes, I do. I was just curious, I'm trying to envision what the driveway into the property will look like with this type of fencing. And I guess I'm questioning whether there will be some kind of a gate of some sort that will be between the end of, the wall and then the continuation of it on the other side of the driveway, if there is something of that nature.
May I answer that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, it will be a gate, and the gate will open inside the property. And that gate also, the drawing doesn't show it properly. Even the gate will be at least minimum 20 feet away from the property line.
Okay. And the gate will be the same material as what we see above the 3-foot wall there in this picture?
Yes.
Submitted?
Yes.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Feeney. Anybody else for Mr. Feeney questions? Oh, Ms. Sharma, you're muted. That's.
Sorry, I apologize.
Great.
So I have one question. So the proposed fence is not just on Winchester, right? It is also on Blanchard Drive. Is that correct?
No, this is just Blanchard. Winchester is going to stay the way it is. We are not changing anything, and that's from inside the house is pretty tall. From outside the street, I believe is about 8 feet or 7 feet. But that's the existing wall, and it's covered by trees, existing trees. We are not touching that at all.
I see. So the proposal is primarily to put the fence on Blanchard Drive.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else for Mr. Feeney? All right, hey, thank you very much, Mr. Feeney, for coming tonight and talking to us.
Thank you.
All right, we're now going to move into the public comment section of our meeting tonight regarding this project. And if somebody could help me, let's see, participants. Ms. Hamilton, what's best? For me to call on people in this attendees, or are you going to call them forward? Or does anybody want to talk? Mr. McNally, who was at the city council meeting.
Yeah, I would have Commissioner White. You can go ahead and call on those where you see the raised hand.
Okay. Mr. McNally, thanks for coming to the city council meeting last night, and you had an opportunity to talk to us about this project, please.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, it was very interesting last night. I learned a lot about fences, and when I got to watch the sausage getting made. Well, I'm glad that Mr. Feeney is here, and we want to be neighborly, and we want to welcome him to the neighborhood. And I'm not the kind of person who likes to complain about my neighbors or try to set rules or anything like that. But a 6-foot fence on Blanchard is it's too tall. It doesn't matter what you make it out of. We're across the street. It's right in our face. And it's not a good look on the street. It's a really terrible look. I understand he wants to fence his swimming pool in. I think he's required to by law, and that's fine. It's just, we have a gate and a taller fence too. They're just set way back from the street, and that's what's going to need to happen. It's that kind of frontage wall on a street where there is not one property like that at all. I walked it the other day, and I'd say there are about 10% of the houses that have any fence at all, and those are little 2-footer or 3-footer picket fences, or little small things. We have a little broken stone one ourselves that runs about 2 feet tall, and that's fine. Those look great, but there's nothing so big, and I think it would really detract from the neighborhood. So, you know, I would suggest we try to find, or he try to find some other way to you know, keep his property secured from the street, but it can't be that tall and it can't be that far out. It just would look terrible. So was there anything else I wanted to add to that? When I talk with people on the street, we keep hearing the word compound being used. That kind of a fence on the front really turns the property into a compound, and that's different. If I understood correctly, he's interested in that neighborly feel of an open street and an open plan, and that would make it the opposite of that. So, and again, I don't have any problem with anything that goes on you know, the street on the wall on Winchester is fine. Of course, you want to keep street noise down. Completely agree with that. Don't have any problem with that. Let's see. Yeah, that's it for my comments. I hope, you know, we don't end up antagonizing him over this. We do want to stay good neighbors, but I think the street's in pretty vehement agreement that kind of fence is just really not something we'd like to see. That's all I have to say.
Great. Thank you, Mr. McNally. Ms. Ricci.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. Well, thank you for being here tonight. And I just wanted to start by saying how much I feel thankful for living in such a beautiful town as Monte Sereno. And, you know, thank you for all the wonderful work you do to keep our town running every day. My husband, my 3 children, and I have lived here since 2008. With our dog, a Yorkshire Terrier named Bentley, and you know, it's been wonderful. And one of the things we really like is the neighborly feel. Before COVID, we had the neighbors would host yearly coffees where we'd share information. We've had, you know, police officers do safety talks, and it really is a wonderful community feel. And we're genuinely excited about the house being built across the street. But when we learned about this very high 6-foot wall being set close to the road, you know, it was very disappointing, to say the least. It's just not in keeping at all. I don't know if any of you have ever driven down Blanchard, but you'll see as soon as you do what we're talking about. It's a very open, rural feeling street, and a high wall like that is completely out of character with the rest of the street. And I do not think it meets this 40-foot visibility triangle either. So I think that's definitely a point that has to be investigated, but I don't think it's going to meet that. So as far as, you know, I couldn't be more concerned about safety as well, and how we deal with that. Besides being good neighbors, we've had, you know, neighbors check on each other's houses when out of town. We use the Los Gatos Alarm Company, and they're wonderful as far as having, you know, really good alarm service. We have cameras around our house, and yeah, and you know, our dog too is a wonderful alarm dog. So these are all, you know, other methods I think that we can use besides building a 6-foot high wall across the front of, you know, the house. So anyway, those are my comments this evening, and thank you for listening.
Well, thank you for speaking, and thanks for submittal of your letter as well. We appreciate that. Anybody else that wants to speak tonight in attendance? If you could raise your hand, then I'll know to call on you. Going once, going twice. All right. Seeing no further desire to speak from the public, I'm going to close the public comment portion of our meeting and turn this back to the commission for discussion. Commissioners, your thoughts on this application, please.
I am in agreement with the neighbors. I mean, we're always, for the Site and Architecture Commission, trying to defend our rural character, and people sometimes laugh at that. I think Blanchard does a good job of combining different styles of houses, but it still has that rural character. And I feel like a fence of this height and bulk is not in keeping with the rural character of the neighborhood.
Great.
That's all I
Thank you.
got.
Anybody else?
So I have to agree with Commissioner Harrington and the other neighbors that spoke. Like, I think that, and it sounds like Mr. Feeney is interested in, working this out. So I would like to see, him come back with maybe a proposal which is more in line and more acceptable to the neighbors. I agree that it would look really out of place on that street. And, and the concerns of the neighbors are very valid.
And I would agree with that. I think it is out of character, but it's also a matter of there being other solutions to his primary concerns and workable solutions as far as security and so forth. So I'm not sure how the safety factor works. I drove by it last night and it seemed to be pretty open visually. So I don't know how much of a safety factor it's going to be in terms of, getting out onto Winchester Boulevard, but just from a standpoint of being out of character for the neighborhood and the street itself, I would agree with everybody else.
Ms. Ziedler?
I likewise agree. And also, to Jeannie's point, I don't know that it meets the 40 feet setback, and agree that if the applicant still wishes some sort of fence, perhaps he could go back to the neighbors to find a more palatable solution to them.
Thank you. I think we're all in agreement here. I'm very appreciative of Mr. Feeney's willingness to listen to the neighbors, but we also have been at these meetings when the neighbors are unreasonable. So just because a neighbor has an objection doesn't mean it's reasonable, but in this instance, I think they are. I appreciate the concerns about security, but I want to make sure that the applicants understand that the objection that we're hearing tonight is one of walling in a home from the street. And any substitute fence and this idea of a gate and all of the security that is apparently wanted here is really what they're objecting to. The home should be viewed from the street. And I think there are other means by which to achieve some resolution to concerns regarding security there. So with that, I think we're all in agreement. There is a memorandum of decision for site development permit SS-21-03 that Ms. Hamilton distributed to us this afternoon or early evening that does not approve that. Is there a motion to adopt this particular memorandum?
I'll make the motion to adopt the recommended memorandum.
Which
And I second it.
Can I make a suggestion to the commission?
Sure.
That for the record, you articulate what the
That's fair.
reasons for denial are?
Yeah, and they are as reflected in the memorandum from my perspective. The presence of a proposed 6-foot fence or wall, as this will be in many instances, within the front setback creates a significant visual impact on the streetscape, and that the home is blocked from view behind the fence and wall, and connection of the home to the street is eliminated. And that, in addition to an inconsistent pattern of fencing that in comparison to those in the surrounding homes of the neighborhood, are bases, I think, for which denial is appropriate in this instance. Is that satisfactory, Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Okay. All right, amend the motion to include all that fun stuff. And unless there's some objection from another one of our commissioners, would like to take a roll call on this particular application.
Commissioner Sharma,
Yes.
Commissioner Booker,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Aye.
Commissioner Zeidler,
Yes.
Chairperson White.
Yes.
So that motion passes 5-0 and the applicant's request has been denied.
Okay, thanks, everybody that appeared on that, and good luck to the Finis in finding something that will work in that neighborhood. I think there are some options. All right, moving our agenda forward, we have one item in news business, which is our obligation to deliver an annual report to the City Council regarding what the Site and Architecture Commission has accomplished or will accomplish in the past and going forward. I think everybody has seen the draft that was submitted to all of us with our agenda from Ms. Hamilton. Is that correct, commissioners? Nod if yes. Great. Good. I don't have any objection to that which Ms. Hamilton prepared. I think the key element to this, which we were talking a little bit offline about, is the City Council's very intelligent decision to approve the SB2 grant and enter a contract with a vendor by the name of, excuse me,
M Group.
M Group, thank you. I knew it would be very difficult for me to remember that. That will, with the grant of $160,000 to help pay for development of objective criteria that's going to enable this commission, I think, to meet its obligations to the community in a much more easy fashion, and know, I think, make it much easier for applicants to know going into the process exactly what is and what is not acceptable in our community. So I'm excited about that, and I hope I manage to stay on this commission long enough to see the fruit of all those efforts through that grant and the product from the M company that we'll ultimately see and will be before us this year, I hope. Any other commissioners have any comments regarding our report to the City Council?
I guess my only comment is I look at this and it gives all the statistics in past years. I mean, we've kind of talked about, and I guess it's all going to be taken care of by this group that we're hiring to analyze, but I think it would be helpful to the City Council to communicate any problems we see, which I think we've kind of have just with what we've talked about in our meetings, but it might be nice to spell out what we'd like to see be different, or challenges that we've had, or a little bit more than statistics.
I don't disagree with you, Commissioner Harrington. I think perhaps similar to what was discussed and the conversation that was had with the joint commission and council meeting, I think, we can put something together from the commission's standpoint to then present to them to perhaps maybe continue that conversation. This sort of annual report really is kind of what you did last year, and then maybe there's something that we can set for discussion on a future agenda as to what other items or areas that the commission, because we have 3 new commissioners, here now, what areas you would like to see addressed, or you think could be looked into to make your efforts more effective or your job more meaningful or whatever. But I do agree. It's like what what should you be doing? What do you want to see done to make changes that you think would be helpful? So is that something that sounds like we could agendize for like a discussion? I
Yes.
don't know.
Yeah, are you talking about delivering some information to this consulting group or?
I think, no, what I'm talking about is to the council for, what you'd like to see done. As far as the SB2 grant work, there will be, I believe, some outreach as part of the larger programmatic work and scope that they'll be doing. So they'll be previewing and be discussing and be presenting what they're seeing as challenges relative to the design guidelines and our zoning and subdivision regulations, specific to subjective versus objective. Again, I think the next body of work that'll be coming through will be the housing element update and general plan update work that the city has to undertake pretty soon to, again, address state mandates relative to housing production.
That deadline's in April, is that correct, Ms. Hampton?
This April? No.
No,
That's
they had to have a response in.
Oh, well, that's, I think, in response to what's referred to as the regional housing needs assessment methodology that the larger, I'm throwing out a lot of acronyms, ABAG, Association of Bay Area Governments, uses to determine each jurisdiction's fair share of housing when it comes to affordable housing requirements. Those final numbers, I think, will be coming out in July. The kind of draft numbers are there, but I think the council has already directed the administration to forward certain letters and resolutions related to the proposed methodology and stuff like that. So that's, I think, already in the works, as well as other housing legislation that's popped up and going through the halls of Sacramento as we speak.
And not to put you in a corner, but can you let us know what was the allotment that Monte Sereno was in terms of new units for this?
It's around 192.
So you guys figure out 192 lots that we have to put housing in.
No, and actually, one of the things that the Department of Housing and Community Development has basically acquiesced to is that can be accomplished through accessory dwelling units, junior accessory dwelling units. So, absent any major redevelopment of what I don't know, that's more than likely how those units are going to come through this city. What we see as far as, someone who buys a property, they tear down an existing house and build a new one, that really doesn't go towards our, satisfaction of maybe above moderate, because the state really just wants to see net new units. So the new units that we see coming along are really in the form of the accessory dwelling units, and now junior accessory dwelling units, which will, probably qualify for the very low. And a lot of the accessory dwelling units will be our low income. The area that the city, kind of falls short in is moderate. We have, and, above moderate, as far as there's not that many vacant sites in the city for new units to be constructed absent demolishing an existing one. We've gotten, that 3-unit subdivision just down the road here. We have another 2-lot subdivision that'll be coming before you on the 17th. So there are a few opportunities for, the subdivision of existing properties within the context of the current general plan and zoning, which are larger lots. But other than that, we'll be seeing it mostly through accessory dwelling units.
Gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough
Yeah.
to meet the expectations of
Yeah,
this.
and I think the last allocation for the last 5-year cycle was, I want to say 61. So it's about tripled. You have other cities that, have to provide triple, 4,000, so 12 or 13,000 units. So in the larger context, it's not a whole lot. But just looking at the confines of Monte Sereno, it's a good number. However, we are seeing a lot. I mean, we have approximately 1,200 units. I'll say, ballpark of 1,200 properties or lots. So 10% of those that don't already have an existing accessory dwelling unit would, carry another unit, which, if you think of it in those terms, might not be too bad. But that's just my opinion. I mean, I worked in San Jose for 27 years, and we pumped out affordable housing in multifamily developments and quality development, and so we just don't have that opportunity in this community. You don't have large lots. You don't have commercial properties that are turning over to residential. You don't have industrial. So from that standpoint, it's a challenge in this community. So
Can I ask you a question? About the ancillary lots that you're talking about, or the ancillary housing with the lots that 190 or whatever. Are people in the city of Monte Sereno, are they open to doing that? I mean, generally accepting to doing that, the residents that are having to or looking at, redeveloping their properties or remodels and adding these second units to them?
yes, I'm amazed at the applications that have come in. On average, there's 12 to 16 applications coming in, and I can only anticipate that'll increase. I think people are finding creative ways to do it. I mean, you've got an area of the city which is anywhere from 6 to 8 to 10,000 square foot lots. Even on those, people are finding creative ways to add to their existing home, or put a small 400 to 600 square foot accessory unit in the rear. A half-acre and acre lots, not a whole lot of difficulty finding the area to put an 8 to 1,200 square foot accessory dwelling unit. And it's, in one sense, the community has the benefit of larger lots so that they can accommodate those without really taking away from that environment for the main dwelling on the property. You have a lot of existing homes that have cabana structures that are converting them to accessory dwelling units, and whether they use it for an income or it's there to accommodate extended family members. It's the whole range. I've run into some people who they're now moving out of the primary into the accessory and then renting out the primary because they don't need that much. But yes, in answer to your question, as you can tell, I'm long-winded. We are seeing a lot of people submitting for the accessory dwelling units. And you may or may not be aware, but they do not go through a public hearing. It's strictly a building permit, and the majority of them, although they can go up to 4 feet to the side and rear, people aren't necessarily placing them right up against the properties. They are, being a little more sensitive.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, have we, and again, not having had the benefit of any, background here as a commissioner, being my first time around with it, but have we relaxed the permit process on that type of thing at all
Well, the state relaxed it for us.
Okay. All right.
The state no longer allows for a discretionary permit. Monte Sereno started to relax their regulations, from my understanding is from what they had previously had. And then as the state started to relax them, there wasn't a whole lot that we had to do necessarily to fall in line. But it's really come down from the state.
Sure. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Patrick. Is that number you gave us, Jeannie, for the year, 12 for the year, or?
You don't
have to be spot on with it. I'm just
the housing annual housing element report that will come back to them on March 16th will have the numbers. I think last year we actually finaled certificate of occupancy for 9.
Okay.
So again, there were more applications, and then there's even more that are coming in. So it's kind of, how many that came in 2019 did we final in 2020? And, there are some that came in 2020 but weren't finaled in 2020, and they'll carry over to 2021. But I'm seeing on average about 12 a year so far, applications. How many get finaled is a different story.
And that's a requirement that needs to take place over 3 years, is it not?
It's a 5-year cycle, I believe.
5-year cycle. Okay. Well, then I'm glad of that. I'm glad I cut 2 years off.
I believe it's a 5-year cycle because the current one we have to, it goes to 2023. So I know it's 2018 to 2023. Is that 5 years? Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's 5 years. I tried to avoid it when I was working in San Jose. I didn't like dealing with the housing element stuff. So now it's a whole new world for me. But yeah, it's a real thing, and they take it very seriously.
Anything else from anybody? The only thing I'll say or encourage you guys to do if you get a chance is take a look at the city council meeting agenda from last night. There was an item, I think it was item 2 on the agenda, which was a fence ordinance that council members Meckenchuck, who was a former site and architecture commissioner, and former Mayor Lawler put together regarding principally wood fences. And it's going to be coming back to us for approval. And if you want to preview it and give yourself an opportunity to get prepared for that, I know they want to kind of fast track that going forward. And I know that Ms. Hamilton has some very important critiques for that we'll all listen to and have an opportunity to discuss maybe next.
And to be honest, you may or may not, because they may not, want my critique of it. So I'm only going to interject myself when asked. So
you may call Ms. Hamilton of her critiques. In any event, if you guys want to preview, I think that'll be in front of us. Is that on the 17th or in April?
What was the schedule that they put up last night?
Yes, I know. So I was trying to remember myself. It's quick.
Yeah, we'd have to look. But what I wanted to also offer to the new commissioners, since you haven't been party to the, 2 other times that a proposed fence ordinance came, if you have any questions relative to the current fence regulations, I'm more than happy to, give me a call. I can walk you through it. Currently, they're pretty straightforward. And basically what you saw tonight with the Blanchard Street project is the only time a request will come before you relative to fence height increase from what you would otherwise be able to do as of right. So I'm offering myself up for education purposes, so that when it does come before you, you'll have a base, kind of solid base, to then understand what may or may not be proposed for changes.
Thank you.
Thank
One last question and we can adjourn. There was talk of a planning commissioners symposium, I think in the latter half of this month, over a 3-day period that the clerk reached out to us about. And there was some question about whether it will occur in light of COVID. Do you know anything about that, Ms. Hamilton?
Is it the League of Cities thing that usually happens in
Maybe
Monterey or
it's 3
something?
days. It's like a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I can't recall.
Unfortunately, I don't have any information. I can touch base with her.
That's all right. No, I can ask her too.
Okay.
Something.
Okay.
All right. Anybody have
I
anything else?
think once we adjourn this meeting, stay online and we can talk relative to the iPad stuff.
Okay. Great. All right. Anything else? Anybody? Official business? All right. I'm going to adjourn the meeting of March 3, 2021. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.